At a family dinner, my parents and brother convinced Grandpa to pay $32,000 for a dream family trip to Japan. But at the airport, it turned out his ticket was invalid. Mom told him, "You're not coming. Go home." They took his money, but never planned to take him. I stayed with him and did this. 2 weeks later, they came back and started screaming in panic. I still remember the way he held that ticket. 2 fingers, careful, like it might tear if he breathed on it. He wore his gray blazer. Yeah, the one with the patch he'd sewn on the elbow himself. He looked like a kid on his first field trip, nervous, but trying not to show it. "Are you sure I won't fall apart mid-flight?" he asked as we pulled into the airport parking lot. "Nope," I said. "But if you do, it'll be somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, chasing your dream. Honestly, not the worst way to go." He grinned, really grinned, for the first time in weeks. Like, just for a second, he let himself believe this was real. We got there early. My parents, my older brother Luke, his human Pinterest board of a wife, and their two spawn, who speak exclusively in TikTok quotes, rolled in 20 minutes late, dragging suitcases that looked like they came with personal stylists. Everyone was hugging, laughing, buzzing like a holiday ad. But no one hugged Grandpa. He stood off to the side with his little suitcase and that folded paper, his ticket. Mom gave him a nod without eye contact. Dad muttered something about check-in. Luke said, "Yo, Grandpa," and immediately went back to his AirPods. This is the same Luke, by the way, who once gave Grandpa a box of tea for his birthday, labeled "for vascular support." Touching. I hung back, just watching Grandpa try to keep up. No complaints, ever. Even though his left leg barely bends since he fell off a ladder 25 years ago. "Creaky is trendy when you're old," he once joked. Then came check-in. The woman at the counter was maybe 20, with that face that tells you whether you booked direct or used your cousin's shady travel site. She gave us half a smile, glanced at the screen, and said, "I'm sorry, sir, I don't see you in the system." Grandpa blinked and handed her the paper. She looked, typed something in. Mom swooped in behind her, with Dad looming right behind like he was about to negotiate a lease. "What do you mean not in the system?" Dad barked. "We booked everything together." "I'm sorry," the woman said again, a little firmer now. "There's no ticket issued under his name." Grandpa stepped back like someone had bumped into him too hard, except no one had, just words. "Maybe it's a glitch," I said, but I knew it wasn't. "Dad, you said yourself the flight would be too hard on you," Mom chimed in, adjusting her scarf without meeting his eyes. "And we'll be walking a lot, fast. It'll be easier for you to stay home. You'll be more comfortable." Grandpa didn't say anything. Finally, he whispered, "But I gave you the money. I paid for everything." Mom locked eyes with him, her voice sharp. "You're not coming. You walk too slow and would hold us up. You paid. Thank you. Now go home." Silence. Even the kids paused their screens. Dad coughed. "Because of you, Dad, we're all able to go. You made this happen. You're the hero." "Yeah, the hero who's staying behind," Luke added with a smirk. I looked at Grandpa. His face had gone pale, nearly translucent. His fingers were white against the suitcase handle. He turned his head slowly, scanning for someone, anyone, who might explain this was a mistake. He didn't even ask why. He was just trying not to fall over. There was something in his eyes I hadn't seen since I was a kid, like he was both confused and hopeful at the same time, like a little boy who'd been forgotten at the store, or a soldier who never got the memo that the mission was canceled. I looked at Mom. She was digging through her purse like it owed her money. Her fingers glittered with rings Grandpa once gave Grandma, one of which she'd later had resized for herself. Wears it proudly. Grandpa lowered the paper. His hand shook. "I'll head home," he said softly, like he didn't want to disturb anyone. "You're not going home alone," I told him. Mom spun around. "Chelsea, don't be ridiculous. You've been dreaming about Japan forever. It's all paid for." "Not all of it, apparently," I said. "If Grandpa's not flying, neither am I." Dad rolled his eyes. Luke muttered something about drama queens. "Chelsea," Grandpa said, barely above a whisper. "This isn't your fight. Go. You've wanted this for so long. The cherry blossoms, the temples, all your poetry stuff." "I did," I nodded. But not without you. If you're not there, it's not my dream. It's just a pretty backdrop, and I don't collect scenery. He tried to smile. Didn't really stick. I don't want to ruin this for you. You're not the problem, I said. You're the point. Mom exhaled sharply. Fine, your call. And they just left. No goodbyes. No sorry. Just walked away like we weren't even standing there. We stepped outside the terminal. It was cold, but Grandpa wasn't shivering. He walked beside me, tall, quiet, still clutching that piece of paper like it was all he had left. He didn't throw it away, and for some reason that broke me more than anything else. We drove back in my car. Grandpa, Harold really, took the passenger seat and sat like a statue, hands on his knees, jaw clenched. He's 77, still sits straight as a board, but I know he hasn't driven in a year. Nobody should suffer because my reflexes can't keep up with the brakes, he once joked, but now he said nothing. No jokes, no commentary, just silence that felt heavier by the minute. I kept glancing over, afraid he might just break. Right before we got to his house, he finally rasped, I'm sorry, I wanted you to go. You dreamed about this. I dreamed about you going, I said. This was your wish. Kyoto, spring, the sakura, remember? He nodded. I do. And if I close my eyes, I can still hear the cicadas at Arashiyama Station. We got inside. First thing he did? Put the kettle on. Want some tea? He asked. Sure. No sugar, I remember. He took out 2 mugs. Not 3. The third one, Grandma's, he'd packed away after the funeral and hadn't touched since. While the tea steeped, he hung up his jacket neatly and straightened his shoulders. Do you think I'm stupid? He asked. I think you're too kind, I answered. He nodded slowly. Never thought kindness could wear you down like this. I didn't say anything, just sat. They'll go now, he said. Eat sushi, post stories, #family time. And you? He shrugged. I'll be in the footnotes. No, I said. You're chapter 1. He looked at me, really looked. I pulled out my laptop and typed, Elder Financial Abuse Laws, U.S. He didn't ask what I was doing, just brought over my tea and said, just don't do anything you'll regret. I took a sip, smiled. No, Grandpa, from now on, we're only doing things we won't. I'm 28, middle school English teacher, single, no kids, though that doesn't stop half the parents at PTA meetings from asking, but do you even like children? Like they hand out education degrees only after you've birthed 2 and locked down a mortgage. I live alone. And I'm fine, or as fine as anyone can be when their entire family thinks they'd be more successful, feminine, and pleasant to be around if they'd just learned to shut up and smile more. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the glow of my laptop screen. The page said, Elder Financial Abuse, Your Legal Options. The cursor blinked in the box that said, Describe what happened. And I froze. How do you even put that into words? My family doesn't care about family, just money. My grandfather's not a person to them. He's a walking credit card. They dumped him at the airport the second he became inconvenient. That cool with everyone? Across from me, Harold took a loud sip of tea. He didn't ask what I was doing, didn't offer advice, just sat there, like always. After a few minutes, he said, You've always known where to look for answers. I looked up. You taught me that, I said. He nodded, like he was quietly filing that moment away, checking a box marked worth it. And just like that, I was 7 again. Sitting with him in the garage while Mom called me too sensitive for crying after Luke locked our dog in the pantry. Luke had claimed she ran away. She hadn't. She'd scratched his toy car, so he punished her. Yeah. Luke. 4 years older than me. Everything I wasn't, palatable, obedient, polished. Knew the phrase social standing by age 5 and said it like it was a moral obligation. He was Mom's pride and Dad's legacy. Straight A student, student body president, captain of whatever, and the kind of guy who probably had a LinkedIn by middle school. Me? I was the difficult one. Asked too many questions. Didn't wear heels. Hated kale. Loved sitting in Grandpa's basement playing with wires and broken radios. And no, Donna, my mom, never got that. You're a girl. Why are you always in the garage? She'd ask. Because it's the only place I don't have to pretend, I once said. That earned me a week without my tablet, which at 11 was devastating. Dad, Spencer, mostly stayed silent. Not because he was deep, just indifferent. As long as the holiday card looked good, he didn't care what was rotting underneath. He'd show up to dinner in a suit, eat in 10 minutes, talk in 5, and look at us like we were a spreadsheet that hadn't met its targets. I had a family, technically. But functionally, not so much. But there was Grandma and Harold, always Harold. I called him by name, not out of disrespect, but because Grandpa felt too generic for someone like him. He wasn't just an elder. He was the anchor. Every summer, I'd run away to their house. Grandma baked peach pies. Harold fixed radios. Their place smelled like old books, fresh coffee, and something honest. There was quiet, not the tense, tiptoe-around-it kind, but the real kind, the kind that makes room for actual conversation. Grandma passed in spring, right when the tulips bloomed. She and Harold had been married 49 years. After she died, he told me he'd planned to surprise her with a trip to Japan for their anniversary. She loved Japanese calligraphy, he said once. I kept thinking, later, there's time. I remembered that. I was 12 when he first told me about Kyoto. There's a bridge, he said. Under it, the water whispers. You've heard it? No, Ben did. Who's Ben? A friend. We served together. He died. They buried him near that bridge. I should have been there, but he never finished. And I never asked. His voice said later, and I listened. Well, later showed up, and Harold still hadn't gone. After Grandma died, something in him went quiet. He kept moving, tending the garden, coming to my school events, making his coffee. But it was like he'd folded himself in half. You okay? I'd ask. Of course, he'd say. I still remember your grandma's laugh. That counts for something. Then Donna and Luke suddenly decided to start caring. Donna brought lists of medical checkups. Luke called like he was checking account balances. It all felt transactional. You don't feel it? I asked once. Of course I do, Harold said. But at my age, you learn to appreciate even fake concern. Really? No, he said with a smirk. I'm lying, but sometimes silence is easier. So when they pitched the trip of a lifetime, I felt a pit in my stomach. We thought it'd be amazing to all go to Japan together, Luke said over dinner. To honor Grandma? You've always wanted to go, right, Grandpa? It'll all be on your dime, of course, Donna chimed in, pretending it was casual. You've been saying you want to do something meaningful for the family. Harold smiled, hesitant. Well, if it makes everyone happy. He paid. All 32 grand, for 8 people, sold some bonds, emptied a savings account he'd built for over a decade. I overheard him on the phone with the bank. Yes, the full amount, transfer to my daughter's account. I confirm. He believed them. And then we got to the airport, and he found out there was no ticket for him. I won't repeat that part. You already know what happened. We both lived it. But that moment, when he said, "But I paid," that moment's burned into me like a car crash in slow motion. Everything normal, still. Then the impact. Now we were sitting in his kitchen, tea growing cold, him silent, me typing. What are you looking for? He asked. Laws. What kind of laws? The kind that protect people when everything gets taken from them in the name of love. He looked at me. Chelsea, I don't want a war. Neither do I. I want justice. That's different. He was quiet a long time. Ben would have liked you, he said. He always stood up, even when it was a bad idea. Then I'm in good company. I found the right site, hotlines, elder rights, financial exploitation. I hit save number. And that's when I knew. They weren't getting a cent, not a penny, not a photo op, not another chance to say, it's just money. Because it wasn't. It was memory. It was hope. It was the dream of a man who waited too long. And they tossed it like trash. So now it's my turn. Now, I always knew my mom could be cold. that she had a talent for turning human relationships into spreadsheets with a cost-benefit column. But even then, I didn't think she'd go this far. I didn't believe she'd actually leave her own father standing at the airport check-in counter, holding his passport like someone had just ripped out a page from his life. We went to them ourselves, Harold on my arm wearing the coat he ironed the night before, and a yellow envelope in my bag. I hadn't slept much in the days leading up to it. I called lawyers, Googled Elder Financial Abuse Law USA until my fingers cramped, sent emails, collected documents. I even booked a free legal clinic at the university where third-year law students in awkward suits listened to our case like it was their final exam. And then I found the right person, someone real. Cold voice, warm eyes. I knocked on my mother's front door. She opened it. At first, she smiled, reflexively, like people do when they've trained themselves to be pleasant. Then Luke appeared behind her and instantly went pale. Dad didn't even bother to get off the couch. Of course. "What are you doing here?" Mom snapped. I didn't answer right away. I just pulled out the yellow envelope and handed it to her. "This is for you, Mom." "What is it?" she asked, suspicious, already unfolding the papers. "A subpoena," I said. "Harold's suing you." They all started talking at once. Mom, loud, Luke, aggressive, Dad, same old exhausted silence. "Are you insane?" Mom shouted. "We're family!" "Exactly," I said. "That's why you thought you'd get away with it. But turns out, nope." They kept yelling. Luke accused Harold of manipulating me. Mom insisted, "We did all this for him." Spencer finally weighed in with, "Maybe it's time you focused on your own life, Chelsea, instead of playing babysitter to an old man." And that's when Harold finally lifted his head and said, "The old man paid for your whole trip. The old man got left at the airport, and the old man is done covering for you." Then he stood up, and we left. 3 weeks later, we had a preliminary hearing. Their lawyer came in swinging. Ours didn't flinch. Mom stared at the floor. Luke made dumb jokes. Dad stayed mute. But it was simple. We had proof. The $32,000 wire transfer to my mom's account. The flight itinerary. No ticket for Harold, no ticket for me. A statement from the airline rep. And me, calm, clear, prepared. The judge suggested mediation. Not a threat exactly, more of a nudge. Settle now or lose later. That's when the show began. They turned on each other like a pack of hyenas. Mom yelled that Luke should cover a third. Luke blamed Dad. Dad said, "This is ridiculous, we should just apologize." "I could lose my job over this," Mom hissed. "You know I work for the school district. If this gets out—" "I didn't even know how much he gave," Luke shouted. "Nobody told me anything." "You both agreed," Dad barked. "I was the only one who wanted him to come." Everyone clawing their way out of the mess, everyone trying to save their own skin. The judge just took notes. A week later, they signed a settlement, full repayment, a written apology, and a clause saying it would stay confidential. We signed too, and made copies. Lots of copies. Harold and I were sitting in my kitchen, drinking tea. He was quiet for a while. Then he said, "I couldn't have done this without you." I shrugged. I wasn't in the mood to play the noble granddaughter. "We're not done yet." He raised an eyebrow. "I found tickets," I said. "To Japan. 3 weeks from now. I've got some savings, you know. And we've earned this. I mean, you have." He looked at me for a long time, then nodded. "Think the cherry blossoms will still be there?" I smiled. "I think we don't care. We're not going for the flowers." Harold packed in under 30 minutes. His suitcase had been ready for weeks. "Just in case," he said. Like this whole trip hadn't been my very intentional middle finger to the universe. "Did it all fit?" I asked. He gave me that look, the one that says, "I changed your diapers, kid," even though I'm a fully grown woman with a master's degree and a lease in my own name. We flew out early in the morning. At the airport, he kept glancing around like he was waiting for someone to tap him on the shoulder and say, "Sorry, sir, not this time either." At first it was awkward. We barely spoke during the flight. He read some paperback. I fake slept with my headphones in and my playlist on loop. But in Kyoto, on the third bench outside the train station, he suddenly said, I remember the way this place smelled, even after 60 years. I didn't say anything, just nodded. Sometimes silence says more, especially when you talk for a living. It was my first time in Japan, and honestly, my inner teenager was screaming. Everything was different, quieter, intentional, like even the sidewalk had been calibrated to bring you peace. I fell in love with it instantly. The quiet hiss of morning rice steam, the vending machines on every corner, the way people apologize when you bump into them. On the train, I caught our reflections in the window and thought, God, I wish I could show this to my students. Let them see there's a whole world outside our town. A world where people speak softly and live like they mean it. We visited the cemetery on day 3. Ben. His name was Ben. I'd seen his photo in an old album. 2 boys in uniform, cigarettes in mouth, mischief in their eyes. Harold never said exactly how he died, and I never asked. What he did say was this. He promised to come back and drag me out to California. I promised that if he didn't, I'd come here. And you did. 60 years too late, he said, dry laughing. I kept telling myself I'd go. But life slips away. Not all at once. It leaks. Ruth died, and then, I guess I kind of did too, just kept the body running. He stood there for a while, looking at the grave. Then quietly, I remember. I made it. I didn't forget. I stayed next to him. Didn't touch. Some people don't need a hug. They just need to know they weren't left behind. He stood there a long time, then said, his voice rough. He was the better one, smarter, kinder, and he's the one who died. I stayed. And I spent years trying to figure out why. Why me? Why all these extra years? He wiped his nose with his coat sleeve. Old school. After Ruth died, I thought I was done. I thought I didn't matter to anyone anymore. I was just politely aging in the corner. And then you stayed. At the airport. You stayed. That was the first time I felt alive again. I spent my whole life thinking I had no one, I said. And then I realized, you are my person, my real family. He didn't say anything, just pulled me in, hugged me tight, quiet, steady, like he was afraid I might vanish if he let go. On the 5th day, we were sitting by the hotel window. He was scribbling in a notebook. You writing? I asked. Trying to, he shrugged, not sure who'd even read it. I would, I said, and so would a few thousand others. Once we publish it, I'll build a website, launch a fundraiser, design a cover. We'll call it The Grandfather They Forgot. He gave me a look. Maybe dial down the tragedy? No, I grinned. Let them feel it. 2 weeks later, we came back home, exhausted but happy. Japan was everything people say it is. Quiet, clean, thoughtful. Even if you didn't understand a single word, you could feel the respect. In the way people walk, sit, look. Harold hadn't looked that relaxed in years. Not because anyone catered to him, but because no one yanked the chair out from under him while he was still sitting. For once, he felt like a person, not a burden. He told me he could finally sleep through the night without waking up at 3 a.m., haunted by the feeling that he forgot to do something important. We came back with souvenirs and something even better, closure. One story in our messed-up family that, for once, didn't end in damage. The first few days back were calm, and then the article dropped. Harold pulled a local paper out of the mailbox and tossed it onto the kitchen table. We're famous, he said. I thought he was joking. It was a small-town paper, a short column, no pictures, no names, just a headline that hit like a punch. Elderly man pays for family dream trip, left behind at airport. According to the piece, a check-in worker witnessed a scene that made me want to quit my job on the spot. A man in his 70s, a group booking under his name, a suitcase at his feet, and a daughter who said, "You're not going, Dad, go home." No names, like I said. But my mom had already bragged about the whole thing at work, how she found this amazing deal, how she got the whole family together. So when the article made its way to local forums and social media, people connected the dots. And then her coworkers connected them too. She worked in real estate, where reputation is currency. A few longtime clients suddenly put things on hold. Management had a talk with her. She didn't get fired. But the big listings stopped coming her way. The promotion she'd been eyeing quietly disappeared from the org chart. Luke's marriage fell apart too, not because his wife suddenly grew a conscience, but because the refund money came out of their savings. For a second car, or a kitchen remodel, or, as she put it, a normal life we were barely holding together. He screamed. She called a cab, filed for divorce, no drama, just a check mark on a form. My dad? He was the quietest of them all. Mom wasn't speaking to him. Luke wasn't either. One night he called me, said, "We should talk." I said, "It's too late," and hung up. A couple days later they showed up, all three of them. No heads up, no apology, just knocked on my door like they still had that right. Harold was at the kitchen table flipping through his notes. He didn't get up, didn't come out. "We need to talk," Mom said. Her voice was flat, too flat, which meant she was boiling inside. "Come in," I said, knowing full well I'd regret it. She perched on the edge of a chair like the cushion might stain her. Dad stood by the doorframe, arms crossed. Luke posted up near the window, all tense energy and fake calm. "Do you realize what you've done?" Mom started. "You've ruined everything. For what? For an old man who doesn't even know what's going on?" "We're your family," Luke added. "You picked him over us?" "I've got a promotion on hold because of that stupid article," Mom snapped. "People won't work with me anymore. You think they don't read the news? If you hadn't made a scene at the airport, if you'd just come with us, none of this would have happened." "Our whole family's a mess now," Luke said. "We're fighting because of you. You made us look like monsters." "For what? A show?" "For a person," I said. "A person who deserved basic respect, not some humiliating go home at the check-in counter." Mom grimaced like I'd sworn at her. "Oh, so now you're a hero? A voice for the voiceless?" I looked at her, calm, tired. "No," I said. "I'm just done being part of a family that hurts people and pretends it's normal." "So now you think you're better than us?" "Nope," I shrugged. "Just more honest, at least with myself." That's when my dad finally opened his mouth. "We didn't come here for this," he said. "We need you to talk to him. Ask him to write a letter to the paper, say he backed out of the trip himself, that he got sick, that we didn't leave him." He looked at the floor as he said it. "This article's stirring things up. We can't afford that kind of noise." I stared at them, at my mom, still clinging to her illusion of control, at my dad, asking for lies while refusing to make eye contact, at Luke, who clearly still thought he'd been a saint and the world just misunderstood him. "You want him to lie," I said, "to help you rewrite what you actually did, so you can look decent again, at least on paper." "It's not a lie," Mom insisted. "It's smoothing the edges." "For your career comfort?" She stood up, fast, like I'd slapped her. "You're ungrateful, after everything we did for you, and you turn on your own mother?" "I'm not turning on anyone," I said, rising too. "I'm just done being quiet." "So?" she said. "Are you going to talk to him?" They all froze. My answer would decide everything. Their reputations, their comfort, their last shot at erasing the truth. I didn't even blink. "No." That was it. Their last desperate ask, and my final no. My dad mumbled something like, "Let's go," and was the first to step into the hallway. Luke lingered at the door like he might say something. He didn't, or couldn't. He left too. When the door clicked shut behind them, I leaned against the wall. It didn't hurt. It was just quiet. The kind of quiet that only comes after a storm, when the wreckage is still there, but the air finally feels clean. In the kitchen, the kettle whistled. Harold poked his head out. "They gone?" "They're gone," I said. He stepped closer, didn't say anything, just placed a hand on my shoulder. A small gesture. But it carried more weight than all of Mom's life lectures combined. That's how our new life started. No dramatic transformation. Just a version of life where we didn't have to apologize for existing. We finally opened that yellow notebook he'd been scribbling in and hiding in the desk drawer for years. That's how the memoir started. No clickbait, no viral outrage, just a story from a man who'd lived through a lot. He wrote a little each day, by hand, neat script. I'd swing by after work, not every night, but often. Sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to sit with him for half an hour and go over what he'd written. I typed it up, edited gently, never changed the heart. He loved the idea that anyone would actually want to read it. If Ruth could see me now, old crank writing a book, she'd laugh herself sick. He started opening up, telling me things he never had before. His voice got stronger, his stories sharper. We called the memoir I Came Back for Ben. So he'd know Harold kept his promise, and for Harold, so he'd know his story mattered. To me, it always had. I had a family now, a real one. No shoulds, no obligations, just someone I loved, and who loved me back. One evening, Harold said, "You know, Chels, I'm lucky. Most guys my age only see their grandkids on holidays. Mine stayed." I didn't say anything, just smiled, because it was true. Thanks for watching and listening to our story. I know it wasn't always pretty, families rarely are. But I'd love to know what you think. Did I do the right thing? Would you have handled it differently? Drop a comment, even if you disagree, especially if you disagree. And if this story meant something to you, hit that subscribe button. There are more stories coming.